Face it, it's okay, you messed up. Things were going great for a while, you were sticking with the healthy habits you'd set for yourself. Maybe you got cravings one day. Maybe Friday afternoon rolled around and your friends invited you out for pizza and beer. But for whatever reason, things were going great and then suddenly they were going really crappy. What do you actually do to get back on track once you've been derailed? How do you really get back on track as soon as possible after the emotional guilt hangover and start seeing results again? In today's video, I'm going to tell you a story about an 8-minute habit that can absolutely change your life. So at almost 60 years old, Henry, who's also my dad, found himself about 40 to 50 pounds overweight. So he was 6'2" and he was weighing around 220 to 230. And historically, he liked being at 160 or even 180. And the problem was that he'd been working on his feet for 30 years. He'd been a chef, so he was surrounded by food all day. He was also baking a lot, so he was surrounded by pastries and sugar and flour and sweets. In other words, he was constantly eating. And because he was constantly on his feet and stressed, he had the stress and the sugar link going. And he was getting up at 5 in the morning, working 13, 14, 15-hour days or more while being surrounded by food. So you do the math here. Stressed, not sleeping enough, working too much, and surrounded by sugar. Not really a good recipe. But after getting a diagnosis from his doctor of prediabetes, and the doctor basically said, hey, hate to break it to you, but you're going to be on blood pressure medication for the rest of your life, that kind of scared him. And it made him realize that if he didn't do something different now, then the future was not going to be very good. And it definitely was not going to be the future that he wanted and the future that he chose. But like most of us at the beginning of the new year, he went all in at the start. He was so excited and afraid and anxious and ready to roll, ready to see results. But because he went all in, it was just too much. Just like what happens to most of us at the beginning of the new year, where we go 5 hours a week from day one, but in 3 weeks we're done. And then we wait till the beginning of the next year to begin all over again. But he ended up finding out something that worked extremely well for him. And it all began with a tiny morning routine. So what he found himself doing was, because he still had to get up early at 5 a.m., he easily rationalized the excuse that I don't have time to do these long workouts. So he didn't. Instead, every morning he spent 3, 5, or 8 minutes, and all he did was a basic circuit. He would do sit-ups, he would do push-ups, and then he would do plank. So he would do an ab exercise, a chest exercise, and then another ab exercise with a plank. And the most mysterious thing happened. Not only did he find himself doing this every single day without fail, because it was only 5 or 8 minutes, how could you rationalize, I don't have time for this? You can't really. He found himself doing it every single day, but then something interesting happened. He naturally started eating a healthy breakfast. He started juicing. Add that to his daily routine. And from there, he had a healthy lunch. And then, mysteriously, all these new health habits started cropping up in his life, and he didn't even really consciously cultivate any of them. It was just that one habit of the morning 8-minute routine that somehow psychologically primed his day with a health focus, a health consciousness. Now, just like you hear from a lot of people that are rich, having a wealth consciousness is actively thinking about money and how to earn more of it. And chances are, if you do that, you will earn more money. But what about a health consciousness? Now, this is something I call the Homer Simpson effect, that there's a moment every single day. It's that defining moment where you think, I know I need to do this, but then the other part of your mind says, I'll do it later, or I'm so tired, or don't really want to do this right now. That split moment is the most important moment of your life, because that's where you decide to go on the path you want to go down, or the path that feels good right now. But just by starting the day with a very simple habit, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you pick a few key simple habits that you know you can do every day without fail, even if they're easy, will transform your life. Because it's the beginning of the day. It sets the tone and it sets the focus. So here's your tiny habit for today. If you're struggling to be consistent with some of these health behaviors, I want you to pick a 5-minute morning routine. And all I want you to do is go from one thing to the second, to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth with 1 minute each. Sit-ups, it could be reading 1 minute of a health book, it could be meditating, it could be one yoga pose. The only point of this is to develop a health consciousness which psychologically reminds you of what you're trying to work on with your health and your wellness. And the very act of doing it first thing in the morning, this is important, do it in the morning, will remind you throughout the day, hey, I'm actually working on this. And you'd be surprised at how your body subconsciously, how your life subconsciously changes and rearranges itself to make healthier choices. So I hope that helps, and I want to hear from you below. Tell me what your sample 5-minute morning routine could be, or your 8-minute morning routine. Give me a very simple habit you could implement first thing in the morning That's kind of easy, so there's no way you can rationalize saying, oh, I'm too busy or I don't have enough time here. So after you leave a comment, go over to modernhealthmonk.com if you're on YouTube. I've got a real food weight loss habits guide for you there, and all my best stuff is really only on Modern Health Monk. Make sure you click subscribe because you'll get the next video as soon as it's out, and I'll see you next time.